Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. We've got a great show on tap for you guys tonight. As you could tell, those watching on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, I've got my Tennessee basketball shirt on. Sweet 16 tonight at Madison Square Garden against Florida Atlantic University. Am I nervous? There's no question about it. Tennessee men's basketball has not been to the Sweet 16 since 2010, and that was their only appearance there. Ironically, they actually faced Michigan State in that game back 13 years ago, and there's an opportunity, there's a chance, there's a possibility that they could rematch again this year. So what an unbelievable turn of fate that would be. Michigan State plays the first game at the Garden tonight against Kansas State. Won't be talking a ton of tournament today, although there'll be some games starting during the show. We'll try to keep you, try to keep you updated on those. But going to discuss Ja Morant's return towards the end of the show and how it's unbelievable. His family and Ja himself continue to show an unbelievable lack of self-awareness in his return to the Grizzlies against the Houston Rockets last night. I'll talk about that. I'll also talk about Mario Chalmers having some thoughts that many deem controversial on LeBron James, a guy who you guys know I think is the greatest player of all time in the history of basketball. I actually don't think it's that controversial. Not necessarily what he said, but how people are perceiving it. I'll discuss that later in the show as well. I'll also talk about Shohei Ohtani ending the World Baseball Classic with a bang, striking out his teammate, arguably the second best baseball player in the world, Mike Trout, and why Shohei Ohtani is unquestionably the face of Major League Baseball. What else we got? And Paul George's injury for the Los Angeles Clippers, which is absolutely devastating. You hate that for a guy of his caliber. And I think I was never high on the Clippers before the season, all season long, especially once they made the Westbrook move. I'm officially out 100% on the Clippers. They have no chance, zero, to win a championship this season in 2023, despite some pretty big expectations. I'll discuss that later in the show. But first, in a night with a lot of big NBA games last night, I could argue that the Warriors-Mavericks game very well might have been the biggest, because you got Golden State, who coming into the game was sitting at the 6th seed, only a half game up on the Mavericks in the standings. And obviously, that 6th seed is as coveted as the 8th seed was in recent years, because if you get the 6th seed, obviously, or higher, you do not have to participate in the play-in tournament, which is obviously 7, 8, 9, 10 seeds. Before it's cut off, 11 through 15 is obviously mathematically eliminated. So huge game. Dallas, if they win, they overtake Golden State. Golden State falls to like the 8 or 9 spot. If the Mavs lose, they fall down to about that spot as well. And my Warriors got a big W, 127-125 over the Mavericks. But there was a lot of controversy in that game that's been much discussed, especially among the Mavericks. And I just find it really ironic. So before I sort of give you my take on the situation, here is the situation. Again, apologies to the podcast audience. Here's what happened. So you got a three right here by Anthony Lamb of the Warriors. Ball gets knocked out of bounds by a Dallas player. The ref signals out of bounds off of Dallas. And so they come back from timeout. There's no Mavericks player guarding the Warriors, and Kevon Looney gets the easiest 2 points he'll ever get for the rest of his career. Again, we'll show you one more time. So the ball is going to go out of bounds off this player. Dallas thought that the ref signaled Dallas ball after he initially signaled Golden State ball. What he was actually signaling was timeout. Okay, so then he inbounds it. All the Mavericks on the other side of the court. I'll get into that in just a second. Looney gets the dunk, and now here you see Mark Cuban. Here he is. Yeah, Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, at the scorer's table, or really next to the announcers, saying, like, what the heck is going on? And Mark Cuban went on Twitter last night and gave his take on it. Let's see. Do we have it? Do we have the tweet? Okay. So here's what Mark Cuban said on Twitter last night. He said, for those wondering about the play with a minute 54 to go in the third, let me explain what happened. The ref called Mavs ball. The announcer called it. Then there was a timeout. During the timeout, the official changed the call and never told us. Then, when they saw us line up as if it were our ball, he just gave the ball to the Warriors. Never said a word to us. That's got an easy basketball. Crazy it would matter in a 2-point game. Worst officiating non-call possibly in the history of the NBA. All they had to do was tell us, and they didn't. That is Okay, a little bit of hyperbole by Mr. Cuban on the worst officiating non-call mistake possibly in the history of the NBA. I think that's pushing it just a hair. But I could think, heck, this season I could think of worse. Okay, to me, the worst missed call this season by a mile was the LeBron James drive to the basket at the end of the Celtics-Lakers game. Jason Tatum clearly slaps LeBron in the arm. It was so easy. I mean, crap, the people watching on TV could tell it was a foul, and the ref did not blow the whistle. They went down the scoring books as a missed layup by LeBron James. That's the worst call of this season, one of the worst that I've seen. Point being, there was a lot of confusion. So Mark Cuban said that the refs gave the ball to Dallas when the ball went out of bounds. Again, let's show this play again. Watch the ref behind the basket. Okay, ball's going to go out of bounds. Golden State ball. He immediately points to Golden State's direction. So that is flat out not true by Mark Cuban. He immediately called Golden State ball. So he said the ref called Mavs ball. It's not true. The announcer called it. So I guess the PA announcer in the arena said Mavs ball. I think, honestly speaking, I think that's what threw everybody off. Like, wait, hold on. The announcer said it was, so I don't know if it was a mistake by the announcer or what have you. And then he goes, during the timeout, the official changed the call and never told us. Then when they saw us line up as if it were our ball. Mr. Cuban, your team did not line up as if it was our ball. Again, we'll show the play again. So here you go. The ball's going to go out of bounds off of, I think that was Luka. No, that wasn't off Luka. It was off another Mavs player. And then watch, once they come back, stop right there. If the Mavs thought they had the ball, why didn't they get under the basket? If they thought it was their ball, would their players, or at least two players not been on that side of the floor instead of 5 Warriors? Because the Warriors knew. Okay, all 5 Golden State players like, okay, it's our ball. Oh, there's no Dallas players? Okay, come on, Looney. Here's the easiest 2 points you've ever scored in your basketball life. Not one single Mavs player was on that side of the ball. By definition, if it were your ball, you would need a guy to throw the ball in. Would not a Mavs player have went to the official and said, hey, it's our ball. Can we inbound? And then the official would have told him, no, it's not. And then by that point, the team would have got down the other end of the floor. That's what's confusing to me in terms of Mark Cuban and the Mavericks' interpretation of this. But what's even more ironic to me, so Mark Cuban announced during the game, while the game was going on, that if Golden State won by 2 or less, if they won by 1 or 2 points, that he would protest the outcome of the game, that the Mavs would protest the outcome of the game. As it turns out, and I remember watching the game, Golden State's up 5 for the record with 1 second left. And then Reggie Bullock for the Mavs hits a 3 at the buzzer to make it a 2-point game, a 2-point win for Golden State as opposed to a 5-point win. And so obviously it's like, oh, here we go. Then now you're going to have the protest. First of all, Mark Cuban's not going to win this. I'll get into the ref side of it in just a second. But for the Mavs, what is as ironic as it comes, they are essentially saying the refs screwed us out of this win. And again, what is a very big late March game in terms of the Western Conference seeding. Okay? For a team that, Cuban's talking about the worst officiating non-call in the history of the NBA. That's funny. The Mavericks are third. 1, 2, 3. Third. 1, 2, 3. Third in the NBA in free throw attempts made per game. Free throw attempts per game with 25.8. So essentially, the Mavs shoot 26 free throws a game. Their best player, more on him in just a second, Luka Doncic, is third himself in the NBA in free throw attempts per game with 11.02 attempts. So Luka shoots 11 free throws a game. Only Giannis and Embiid are higher. You got that? So Mavs are third in free throw shooting. Luka's third in free throw shooting individually. And then the Mavs, the team in the NBA. Okay. So the refs were not in your side. Again, Mark Cuban is an owner that I would say among the 30 owners of the NBA, Mark Cuban knows basketball fairly well. Like he's he buys the team and he's just kind of pretending to know, pretending to know more than he actually does. No, Mark Cuban actually knows the game at a decent level especially for an NBA owner. So he's not stupid, okay? By the way, billionaires, guy who, goes from nothing to where he is now is no idiot. There's no question about that. There's all the respect in the world for Cuban as a businessman, but that's another discussion. For Mark Cuban to say, if the Warriors win by 2, we're protesting. Because, of course, that Kevon Looney dunk was 2 points. And saying, well, that's the difference in the game. Folks, it's not the butterfly effect. Basketball is not a game where you could look back at the second quarter and be like, okay, because that guy got fouled with 10 minutes and 41 seconds left of the second quarter, he hit both his free throws, and the team won by 2. That's why this team won the game. That's not how the game works. Situations dictate how you play. Like, you can't just go back in a game, watch the highlights, and be like, well, if he'd made this shot, then it'd have been a different game. That's not how it works. And for the Mavericks as an organization, this is shameful. An official makes, and I don't even think this is a bad call. The ball clearly went out of bounds off of the Mavs player. The ref clearly signified Golden State ball. He points to to Golden State's side. It's their ball. Clearly determines that. But there's been some bad officiating in the NBA at times. I think we can all agree with that. I would say of the 3 major American sports, football, basketball, and baseball, basketball right now has the worst officiating. I'd say NFL's the best. Major League Baseball is a close second. Basketball is a distant third. No other teams have protested the outcome of games. Does some of this have to do with the fact that it's a late season game? Maybe, but Dallas still has 9 games left, and there's a very good chance that worst case scenario, unless they just fall apart these last 9 games, worst case for Dallas, they'll be in the play-in tournament. They still could climb up and get the 6th seed. There's only a game and a half difference. They can absolutely make up that, depending on what happens above them and what they do. But this is a bad look for the Mavs as an organization. It's a bad look for Mark Cuban, and it's a bad look for Luka Doncic. Did you see? We don't have the video of it, but did you see what he did late in the game? 30 seconds left. He gets stopped by Klay Thompson. Mavs are down 1. Luka misses a step back 3. It's great defense by Klay. Luka thinks he should have gotten a call. When the ball goes out of bounds, he looks at the ref, and this was the first time he did this, and did the money sign. Essentially as to insinuate that, Golden State paid you guys off. That is hilarious. Again, let's talk about Luka. Luka is third in the NBA in free throw attempts, with 11 free throw attempts per game. The best player in the other team, and in my view, the best player in all of basketball, Steph Curry. You want to know where he ranks in the NBA in free throw attempts? Steph Curry's 32nd. Steph Curry shoots a little over 5 free throws a game. So Luka shoots more than double what Steph shoots. You say, well, that's because Luka gets a lot of his buckets the paint. Steph is more of a perimeter player. Except when you look at the other guys in this list. Damian Lillard is 5th in free throw attempts, as Trae Young 7th in free throw attempts. Okay, DeMar DeRozan 10th in free throw attempts. James Harden 14th in free throw attempts. De'Aaron Fox 16th. Jalen Green 19th. Jalen Brunson 20th. Zach LaVine 22nd. I think you get the picture. I'm not going to necessarily turn this into a Steph doesn't get calls segment, although the evidence is overwhelmingly supports that argument. Overwhelmingly. But that aside, this is a bad look for the Dallas Mavericks. This, in a season that's had a lot of officiating mistakes, that wasn't one of them. If there's any team in the NBA all season long that had the right to protest an outcome of the game, it was the Lakers in that game against the Celtics. And I don't like the Lakers. But that was the worst missed call I've seen in a long time, certainly this season, in which LeBron clearly got hacked on the arm by Jason Tatum. The refs didn't call it. The game went to overtime. The Lakers lost. Now, is that the reason the Lakers lost? Of course it isn't. No, you still got 5 minutes of basketball to play, and the Celtics got play in those 5 minutes. But it sort of goes to what I always say on my show. When people, it's usually fans, but in this case, it's an organization who's blaming the refs for getting beat. It's like I always say, refs miss in a basketball game, NBA game. What are we going to say? I mean, it depends on the flow of the game, depends on if they let you play or not. And by the way, for the record, the refs kind of did let both teams play a little bit. But How many calls per game do you think the refs miss? I mean, make up a number in your head. I'd say it's, I don't know, just off the top of my head, maybe 10. I mean, I'm not going to watch a whole basketball game. Just, okay, did you miss this? Did you miss? But you get the idea. Calls are missed. Like shots are missed. Like defensive assignments are missed. Like bad calls by coaches are made. Like bad passes are made. I mean, it's an imperfect game with imperfect players, imperfect coaches, imperfect officials. Now you want them to be the best they can be. You saw that official that Fred VanVleet called out got, pulled from some of his assignments. Why? He was bad. He was like a bad official, missed way too many calls, gave way too many technicals out. That is totally justifiable. And yes, refs should be held accountable, just like players and coaches. But this notion like, okay, this one call lost us the game. Come on. It reminds me a little bit of when the Houston Rockets, remember a few years ago when the Rockets analytics staff from the 2018 Western Conference Finals looked at games 6 and especially game 7 and said that and it shows you how analytics minded the Rockets were. They were talking about, okay, the refs missed this call, like this moving screen or this missed foul call on James Harden. Add those up and the Rockets win by 20 in game 7. That is not how basketball works. It's making excuses. It's kind of a loser's mentality. Mark Cuban, Luka Doncic, come on, man. Y'all are better than this. Although I'm not sure Luka is, and I love Luka. I think Luka's the third best player in basketball behind Steph and Giannis. I love Luka. I have never in my life, this is not hyperbole, I've never in my life seen a player that complains, I swear to you, almost every time down the floor to the officials. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, he's got 15 technicals. Man, it's a surprise it doesn't have more than that. Gee whiz. Okay. Let's John Rivera. He says, cheaters, Golden State should be banned for life. Oh, man. But it's just, again, it's a loser's mentality to blame the officials for a loss, but especially in an instance where, again, the officials did not get the call wrong. The ball went off of Dallas. The timeout was called. Golden State got the ball. The fact that Dallas wasn't ready, again, even if Dallas thought they had the ball, why didn't 2 of their players go to the end of the floor where the ball was going to be inbounded? One to throw the ball in, one a guy to take the inbound and take it, up the court to run whatever offense they were going to run. It's excuse making. It's not a great look for the Mavs as an organization, for their owner, and for their superstar player. But I did want to move on. Before I do, I did want to wish a very happy birthday, if I can get this in the camera frame of my bike. I did want to wish, you guys know Steph's my favorite player. I wanted to wish happy birthday to Ayesha Curry by showing this t-shirt. Ayesha Curry can cook. You guys know what it is. Those of you that are aware of the significance of that t-shirt, Ayesha Curry was at the NBA Finals, as the whole Steph Curry, as all of Steph Curry's family was, as all the family and loved ones of the Warriors were at the Finals last year in Boston. And there was a sign outside of like a coffee shop or a cafe, something in Boston, that said Ayesha Curry can't cook. It's, it's friendly banter, it is. And Steph, after game 5, wears a t-shirt that said Ayesha Curry can cook. So kind of like a fun way to clap back at it. And so I actually got this shirt after the championship, along with my night t-shirt. Got a lot of memorabilia after that finals win. It was a great feeling. And the money, I think the proceeds went to like some, I think it went to their Eat, Learn, Play, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. Their Steph and Aisha's charity. So happy birthday, Ayesha Curry. And happy birthday to everybody else out there who's got a birthday or knows somebody with a birthday. Okay, so I don't talk a ton of baseball on this show outside of the playoffs, All-Star break, or when, I'll bring Alfred on the show. I'll bring Alfred Parso Jr., for those of you who don't know, the Metropolitan Report. By the way, new episode out today. Please go check it out. Metropolitan Report here at the Grid. Barry Grant Jr., who's a huge baseball fan from the All Even podcast, also at the Grid on the show. Mike Guido, the co-founder of the Grid with Barry. I'll bring him on the show occasionally from time to time to talk baseball. But by and large, I usually stick to NFL, NBA, college football during the season, and then right now, college basketball during the tournament. And then I'll have some baseball in there if there's like a big free agent move. I talked about Aaron Judge, or like last year, the home run chase with Judge. I might have talked about, if I'm not mistaken, I think I talked about Albert Pujols getting to 700 homers. I could be wrong. I think I remember talking about that, but it's rare that I talk about Major League Baseball in March, but I am, because I have to give flowers and props and everything else that is good to Shohei Ohtani. So Japan won the World Baseball Classic 3-2 against the United States. And while I was obviously, disappointed and saddened and disheartened to a certain degree that the U.S. was not able to bring back-to-back World Baseball Classic championships, I couldn't help, and any other person watching, certainly any other baseball fan couldn't help but marvel watching the greatness of Shohei Ohtani. So, to set the stage, the U.S. was down 3-2 going into, I guess it was the top of the ninth inning, because I'm pretty sure Japan was the home team. I want to make sure I'm getting this right. Okay, I don't have the score. I don't have the box score in front of me. It was the ninth inning. U.S. was down 1. And Japan brings Shohei Ohtani out of the bullpen to get the save. And what's his name for the Mets? Jeff McNeil gets on base. And so you got Mookie Betts. You guys know I've always have a soft spot in my heart for Mookie as a Red Sox fan. It's still Bryson shatters my heart that he's a Dodger. Nothing against the Dodgers. I like the Dodgers. It's just the fact that Mookie's not here anymore, and is helping them win championships. Neither here nor there. Mookie gets up, grounds into double play, and it's like, okay, yeah, the next batter could hit a homer and tie the game, but it's like chances are slim. 2 outs, nobody on, and I'm like, oh, Mike Trout's up. Like the World Baseball Classic, you could not have scripted a better ending. The 2 best players in all of baseball, all the world, all of baseball, who happen to be teammates, facing off against each other with the World Baseball Classic on the line. Now, for the record, I'm not as big on the World Baseball Classic as a lot of baseball fans are, but it's entertaining. I watch from time to time. That Japan-Mexico semifinal game was a blast to watch. It was an incredible comeback by Japan to get to the championship game. But you get Ohtani, Trout, and it just so happens to get to a full count, and then Ohtani gets Trout. I think it was with the slider on off-speed pitch to strike him out and to win the World Baseball Classic for Japan. It is time, and I think to a certain degree they have, but it is time. Major League Baseball for decades has flat out stunk compared to other leagues, especially I think the NBA, which is great at this, in marketing their stars. Major League Baseball is not good at it. It's simple. I mean, Mike Trout, up until Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout was the best player in baseball for 5 years or so? You ask the average, forget sports fan, the average person in America, if they saw Mike Trout in the street, they wouldn't recognize him. They'd recognize LeBron. They'd recognize Tom Brady. They would recognize Peyton Manning. They would recognize Steph Curry. If you want to go back further, they'd recognize Shaquille O'Neal. People wouldn't really recognize Mike Trout. They probably wouldn't recognize Mookie Betts. They probably wouldn't recognize Aaron Judge, even though he's obviously a large man in stature, but they'd probably just be like, oh, that's a big guy. Maybe he plays professional sports. Who knows? Without knowing, yeah, he's going to go down in history as one of the great home run hitters in the history of the New York Yankees. Baseball has really been bad at marketing their players. If there was ever an opportunity to market a singular player, that guy, Shohei Ohtani, who it's March 23rd, 2023. So in about 9 months, dude's gonna get paid. Oh, he's gonna get paid by somebody because he's gonna be a free agent. He will be arguably the most sought after free agent that baseball's seen maybe in its history. Because you're talking about a guy in Shohei Ohtani who in 2021, when he won the MVP of the American League, had an ERA or in the 2.5, 3 area and finished third in homers. He hit 46 bombs in 2021. Last season, he did not win the American League MVP. To me, he would have won American League MVP if it were not for Judge breaking Roger Maris's single-season AL home run record. If Judge had hit 50, I think it would have went to Ohtani for a second straight year because he was 6th in ERA last season and 11th in homers. We hear the term unicorn. It's often reserved for basketball players. I know they call Kristaps Porzingis that coming out of the draft in 2015, I think it was. We've heard it referred to towards Kevin Durant, a 7-footer who moves and kind of plays at times like a shooting guard. We've heard it referred to this kid who's about to get drafted number 1 in the NBA from France, Victor Wembanyama. We've heard unicorn used to describe him. If there was ever somebody we could refer to as unicorn, it's Shohei Ohtani. We've never seen anything like him since Babe Ruth. And folks, Babe will have a greater legacy in all likelihood. He'll always go down in baseball history as one of the greats. Obviously, at over 700 homers, he was a great pitcher, especially when he was with the Red Sox before he got traded in 1918 or 1919, I think it was, infamously to the Yankees. But when you consider what Shohei Ohtani's doing, with no disrespect to the Babe, it's not even close. First of all, Shohei Ohtani's playing the best baseball players on planet Earth. Okay, Babe Ruth was playing the best white baseball players in America. So when you compare how baseball has become so much more of a global game, obviously, way back when Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier and baseball slowly but surely desegregated, it's a totally different sport now with Ohtani. The fact that we talk about pitchers are the most valuable player. A great starting pitcher is the most valuable piece to any baseball team. I mean, how do we know this? Because the top 2 highest paid players in Major League Baseball happen to actually be on the same staff with the New York Mets. Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, 2 highest paid players in baseball. 4 of the top 10 highest paid players in baseball this season, all pitchers. When you're talking about Scherzer, Verlander, Garrett Cole for the Yankees, and I think it was Steven Strasburg for the Washington Nationals. It's the most important position. It's the most valuable position. So Shohei's that. Shohei can strike you out, can only give up, 2.5 runs-ish per game on average. Oh yeah, he can take a deep once every once in a while. Again, he had 46 bombs in 2021, 34 in 2022. We have never, ever seen anything like him in the history of Major League Baseball. There's going to be a lot of suitors. I have a hard time seeing any team, even because there's no salary cap in baseball, I have a hard time seeing any team that won't, at least as we hear in the NFL all the time, do their due diligence on Shohei Ohtani. In my view, all 30 teams should go after him this coming winter. Angels are, in all likelihood, not going to be a playoff team. I have a hard time seeing that, especially, even in the AL West. Obviously, we know Houston's not only the class of the division, but the class of the American League. The chance of the Angels getting the playoffs is slim to none. And it's a shame considering they have the best 2 players in all of baseball. The next year, or this winter, got the Mets, got the Dodgers. The Angels will certainly make a push, although I have a very hard time seeing him land there. I would give anything if my Red Sox were to land him. But it's going to be one of the most covered players in the history of Major League Baseball free agency, and for good reason. The dude is still in his 20s and is one of the best aces in baseball and is one of the best power hitters in baseball. And you're seeing other guys from Japan. Again, I speculate. I talk about Shohei, I think, a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe, when he won, when he won the Home Run Derby in 2021, about how he could almost have a Steph Curry effect, possibly. Maybe not to the degree that Steph did, where Steph literally changed the way that a sport is played. You could possibly see that with Shohei, change the way a sport is played with baseball as it pertains to guys coming in as two-way players. I wouldn't discount it. If he continues to have the success he's having, who knows what his contract's going to look like this winter, and he's going to deserve every penny of it. Guys can be looking at that and be like, hey, if I can throw 100-mile-an-hour gas and have a good curveball, slider, some good off-speed pitches in there, and I can be a great hitter, I can make a lot of money playing baseball. I don't think the World Baseball Classic could have ended any better. You could not have asked of all the players that were in the tournament. That's the matchup we wanted to see. And we got it. Shohei got the best of Trout, and Japan won the World Baseball Classic. As sad as I was that the U.S. didn't come out on top for the second straight tournament, it was incredible to see how it ended. And it just goes to show you the greatness of one Shohei Ohtani. Truly, truly remarkable. And, oh, come on, John. John comments, future Yankee. It's not happening, John Rivera. It's not. Okay, he's not coming to New York. If he comes to New York, the Mets are the most likely team. I mean, there's a lot of ties between the Mets. I think Shohei's agent, if I'm not mistaken. So, no, he's not. If he goes to New York, it's going to be the Queens, not the Bronx. At least I hope so. I always say, listen, the Mets, I always consider as a Red Sox fan an ally, despite how the 86 World Series ended. Listen, I was never even a thought in 1986, okay? I didn't even exist in 1986. So I don't harbor any hard feelings towards the Mets, which, it's easy to say now because I wasn't around for Game 6 or Game 7 of 1986 for that matter. And as well, since that point, the Red Sox have won 4 championships in the 21st century. And I got to experience one of those as a Red Sox fan in 2018. So Mets is kind of like, for me, it's sort of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of situation where the Red Sox and Mets both hate the Yankees, where it's like, okay, I don't necessarily like the Mets, but they hate the Yankees. We hate the Yankees. Okay, we're cool. I mean, I can't tell you how many times at Fenway, watching Red Sox games on television, or even at the old Shea Stadium and then at Citi Field, that you've heard Yankees suck chants between Red Sox and Mets fans. It is one of the most truly unifying chants in all of sports. Forget baseball, in all of sports. I absolutely love it. But yeah, man, whoever gets Shohei next year, man, they are going to have to pay a king's ransom in free agency. Okay, hold on. Looks like we got an update on this Dallas Mavericks situation. Hold on. This is according to Shams. Oh, okay. No, never mind. This is just a video, but Shams posted like reacting to the situation, reporting on it. So yeah, listen, Dallas is not going to win the protest. They're not. Like, first of all, the refs didn't even get the call wrong. If nothing else, again, I think what confused everybody was the PA announcer. And I'm not like blaming the PA announcer, like, oh, he shouldn't have. I'm not coming on carving it up to put heat on the Dallas Mavericks public address announcer. But I think that's what confused everybody, where he says Mavs ball, which I have yet to hear the audio of him saying that. I'll take Cuban's word on that. Maybe I shouldn't, considering the number of untrue statements he's got in this tweet. But hey, Dallas is not winning that protest. Okay, it's like I said, it's a bad look. But I also wanted to talk about this because as soon as I saw it, scrolling through Twitter one day earlier this week, as soon as I saw it, I'm thinking, this is going to be a topic on my show, and everybody on all the TV shows, radio shows, podcasts, etc., articles, everybody's going to be talking about this particular soundbite. And that is that of former Miami Heat player and former teammate of the great LeBron James, Mario Chalmers. So Mario Chalmers was on, I think it was a podcast, talking about the difference between LeBron and Michael Jordan, because we all know anytime those two names are brought up, there's going to be a conversation. There's going to be a debate. There's going to be a comparison. And so before I give my take on it, let me show you what Mario Chalmers did. Here was his thoughts on LeBron James and what the biggest difference is between LeBron and Michael Jordan.
Nobody fears Bron. Nobody's like, damn, I got to go play this Bron tonight. Nobody said that. I don't know why.
Right.
Because I've seen people be scared when they actually line up to them, but they're not scared thinking about that matchup.
Right.
You hear anybody from that era talk about going against Jordan, there's a fear.
Right.
So when you have people that fear a player, then that's telling you something different already. Like, Jordan's just that guy. Like, everything was, I want to be like Mike.
Right.
Okay. So he's talking about they don't fear LeBron like they fear Jordan. So this is a nuanced discussion because I'm seeing, and this is why I try to pick a middle ground. I don't usually do this on sports debates, but I try to with the LeBron debates because I think LeBron James is the greatest basketball player of all time. I guess it was the scoring record that did it for me. That was the first time I sort of officially announced that. But you've got your LeBron fans who at times can be incredibly obnoxious, but you've got your LeBron fans who are saying, man, Mario's hating, he's da-da-da-da-da. And then on the other side, you've got people who hate LeBron, love Jordan, who are talking about, yeah, Mario's right. You know, he played with LeBron. He knows. Here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to take this from two different scenarios. Let's say Mario Chalmers is right that nobody feared LeBron James, or at least they don't fear LeBron the way they do Michael Jordan. If Mario Chalmers is right, then I haven't been watching basketball for the last decade. Because notice that LeBron in the Eastern Conference, which he played in from 2003 to 2018. 2003 when he came in the league, 2018 when he left the Cavs to go to the Lakers, and then joined the Western Conference. For a 15-year stretch. In those 15 years, LeBron made 60% of the finals. One guy made 60% of the finals, not to mention a run of 8 straight from 2011 to 2018. All of the other best players in the NBA all happen to reside in the Western Conference. And by the way, plenty of them had opportunity to go to the East. For the record, the East was kind of the easier conference if you think about it. You think about in 2011, when LeBron made his first finals run with the Heat, the first of 8 straight, 4 with the Heat, 4 with the Cavs. Out West, you had the Dirk Mavericks who ended up beating the Miami Heat in that 2011 finals, which LeBron and Mario Chalmers were a part of. You had the Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili-led Spurs around that time. As time passed, you saw the Oklahoma City Thunder. It was first KD, Westbrook, and Harden, and then Harden got traded to Houston. Then Houston was a factor, but KD and Westbrook were still a factor in Oklahoma City. And as time went on, you saw I don't think this team was ever a true championship threat, but the Lob City Clippers were a very good basketball team. Like people saw them like, okay, they're a factor in the Western Conference. And then about the mid-2000s, you saw the rise of my Golden State Warriors with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, the great vets, role players, coaching that they had. There was a lot of player movement in that decade. None of them, outside of Carmelo Anthony, from the Nuggets to the Knicks, went out east. Also, notice that LeBron, over that 8-year stretch, tended to, how do I say this, own teams in the playoffs. Think about the Indiana Pacers. Indiana faced LeBron, was it 3, 4? I think it was 5 times in the playoffs. If I'm not mistaken, I think Indiana played the Heat or the Cavs with LeBron 5 times that I know off the top of my head. 5-0. Didn't matter if it was Paul George or David West. George Hill was on those teams. And that last time he faced the Pacers in the playoffs was with Victor Oladipo and Miles Turner. That was a solid Pacers team. Took the Cavs 7 games to knock them out. You think about the Boston Celtics. And it's funny, too. You hear guys like Paul Pierce. I'm like, man, nobody feared LeBron, which, man, I don't know what's up with Paul Pierce. He says some crazy stuff sometimes. Kevin Garnett at times has said, no, we didn't fear LeBron James. That's funny. When LeBron was in Cleveland, the first stint, when his second best player in that 7-year start to his career was Zydrunas Ilgauskas and Mo Williams. Yeah, never heard of him either. The Boston Celtics had Paul Pierce. They drafted Paul Pierce. But they were like, oh, this is nowhere near enough. We cannot get through LeBron with this. So we're going to go trade for Ray Allen, who, as we sit here today, is second in the NBA all-time in three-point shooting. Or three-pointers made, obviously, to Steph Curry. We're going to go out and get Kevin Garnett, who's one of the greatest defensive players of all time. We're going to get Rajon Rondo, who's one of the better pure point guards of this past generation. We're going to fill it in with veterans. We're going to get Doc Rivers. In 2008, it took the Celtics 7 games to knock LeBron out of the playoffs. In 2010, it took them 6 games to knock LeBron out of the playoffs. And once LeBron finally had the requisite, once it was even, It's your best versus my best. LeBron, Wade, Bosh. The big three in Miami versus the big three in Boston. It was over. Boston wanted no parts of LeBron James and the Miami Heat. Remember that game 6? The LeBron's legacy is on the line game. 46 points. I think he had 15 rebounds. Getting to the basket, hitting fadeaways, looking like Kobe and Jordan out there. Remember that game? Remember what happened? Big three broke up. Ray Allen left to join LeBron in Miami in 2013. And Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett got traded to the Brooklyn Nets. How about the Toronto Raptors? How about Toronto? DeMar DeRozan is an excellent basketball player, one of the more underrated in my mind. He'll go down as one of the greatest mid-range shooters ever. And that's saying something considering the great mid-range shooters we've had. You had Kyle Lowry, one of the better point guards of the last decade. You had other role players, Serge Ibaka. You had Fred VanVleet at that point. Dwayne Casey was the head coach of the Raptors at that time. And LeBron played the Raptors with the Cavs in the playoffs in 2016, 17, and 18. You want to know what the Cavs' record was in those playoff games? They were 12-2. They won 10 straight. The last 10 games that LeBron played the Raptors in the finals, all of them W's. It got so bad, we started to call him LeBronto. Playing LeBron in Toronto, we called him LeBronto because the dude not just owned the Raptors in the court. He wasn't just put up big numbers and winning all these games. You could see it in the Raptors' faces. DeMar, Lowry in particular, like, oh, God, we don't want no parts of this guy. Oh, this just isn't working for us. We nicknamed them the baby dinosaurs. Now, these were good Raptors teams. These were 2 seeds, 3 seeds. In 2018, they were the 1 seed. And the second they stared that man in the face, like, nope, this is too big for us. This is way, way, way too big of a moment for us. So let's say that Mario Chalmers is right. Let's say Mario Chalmers is right that nobody fears LeBron James, the way they did Michael Jordan, rather. Okay. Since when in the greatest player ever discussion, or forget greatest player ever, since when we evaluate great players, does something like fear that cannot be measured, that can't be quantified, calculated, or really even looked at in terms of, is this actually there or not? Since when did that come into discussion? Let me ask y'all a question. It's a genuine question. When opponents faced Magic Johnson, do you think they looked Magic Johnson in the eyes when they stepped on the court during all those finals in Los Angeles or Boston, Detroit, elsewhere, and we're like, oh, that's Magic Johnson. Oh boy. Oh no. No. There's nothing about, to this day, there's nothing about Magic Johnson that invokes fear. Nothing. Yeah, for a guy who never struck fear in people, he had an okay career. You know, he won 5 championships. He went to 9 finals, and he won 5 league MVPs, and is widely regarded as the greatest point guard of all time, and is a top 5 player ever. Yeah, he didn't have that great of a career. He didn't invoke fear in people. Do you think when people faced Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic's teammate, all those years in Los Angeles, and they looked Kareem eye to eye, which is somewhat difficult considering Kareem's height, but those that could, then they saw Kareem under those goggles and were like, oh boy, that's Kareem. Whew. Oh man, we're losing sleep the night before. No, it's not that Kareem wasn't great. Does that diminish Kareem? Absolutely not. Now, when you looked Kobe in the eye, did you have fear? Did he invoke it to a certain degree? It would certainly appear so. I mean, every part of Kobe's game on and off, well, I wouldn't say off the court, but on the court and his persona, he tried to model after Michael Jordan. It's the closest thing we've ever seen in terms of playing style to Jordan. Yeah, he was a natural-born, cold-blooded killer in terms of his scoring ability and his relentlessness. Only comparison we've seen to Michael Jordan in that regard. But does fear factor elevate Kobe? No, I don't think it does. You know what I think elevates Kobe? The fact that he won 5 championships, is the last player in NBA history to lead back-to-back championships. People forget that. Like, we talk about guys that have led 2 straight back-to-back titles. Kobe's done that. And by the way, one of those back-to-back, one just back-to-back, it was a 3-peat with Shaq. Kobe's got an MVP, and Kobe, by the way, is 4th all-time in NBA history in scoring. That's what makes Kobe great. Not to mention all those iconic performances, the 81 against the Raptors, the 60 in his final game against the Utah Jazz, getting to 7 finals. Fear does not elevate Kobe. The same way fear does not, or lack of fear factor doesn't diminish, Kareem or Magic, or if Mario Chalmers is right, LeBron. Since when was that something that we took? Again, I notice, and if you think Michael's the greatest player ever, I don't think you're crazy. He's got a more than valid argument. But we use variables for Jordan that we don't use for other players. And that's what I don't get. Since when did things like fear and intimidation? I mean, I got to be honest with you. I think to a certain degree, Dennis Rodman probably struck a lot more fear in people than Magic Johnson did. Nobody in their right mind would put Dennis Rodman among the 10 greatest basketball players of all time. Now, he's a Hall of Famer. He's a multi-time champion. He was a contributor to a little mini dynasty in Detroit and the second half of a dynasty in Chicago. Dennis Rodman's absolutely one of the greatest players ever. Nobody's putting in the top 10. I just don't know why we use variables for Jordan that we don't use for other players. And again, it's sort of part of what elevates LeBron to me is not fear factor. It's the fact that when Michael came into the NBA, from day one, when he was drafted in 1984 with the 3rd overall pick out of North Carolina, we weren't comparing Michael to be like, okay, he's the next this. He's taking the torch from this player. We weren't comparing Michael to anybody. LeBron, since before he got drafted. Okay, LeBron, you're 18 years old. You take the torch from Michael Jordan. Can you imagine if Victor Wembanyama comes in the NBA, before he comes in the NBA this June, we say, hey, Victor, you are going to take the torch from LeBron James. You'd be like, are you kidding me? You can't put that on the poor 18, 19-year-old kid. And by the way, I agree. It's to a certain degree kind of unfair. LeBron surpassed expectations. LeBron had a cloud hanging over him. I think to this day sort of has a cloud hanging over him in terms of expectations that Jordan did not. Not that we didn't expect something from Jordan, but we were always comparing Michael to somebody else who played before him. We do that almost every time LeBron steps on an NBA court. So that's part of what elevates him in my GOAT discussion. But fear, I think, is an odd variable to use because it's not something that you can prove. It's not something that you can really measure to a certain degree. Relentlessness, sure, you can see relentlessness. You can see when someone is not relentless. Fear, I don't know if that was ever something that we always used. Oh, how about this? Okay. We got a little bit of breaking news here from Adam Schefter. He reports that, quote, Las Vegas Aces and Raiders owner Mark Davis announced today that 7-time Super Bowl champion Tom Brady has acquired an ownership interest in the world champion WNBA Las Vegas Aces franchise. Okay, so listen, this is not surprising me in the slightest that Tom is getting into ownership. I mean, that's, he's somebody, if he's not a billionaire already, which I'm pretty sure he's not, but it's safe to say he's going to be soon with the Fox contract, with TB12, with 199 productions, with everything going on business-wise. I mean, again, like I talked about when Tom Brady retired, he is going to flourish in his post-retirement life. But yeah, listen, happy for Tom Brady. That is a great investment. Sports teams, professional sports teams are always a good investment because the thing is, they're not going anywhere. If you had a lot of money and you bought a stake into the Pittsburgh Steelers, hey, they ain't leaving Pittsburgh. Steelers will be in Pittsburgh for the rest of time, unless the NFL somehow, some way went bankrupt, which, look at the ratings, revenue, etc. NFL is not going bankrupt anytime soon. Now, the WNBA in popularity obviously isn't anywhere near the NFL, but listen, the league has increased in popularity and ratings over the last few years. I mean, some of these young players, especially this upcoming draft, I think Caitlin Clark of Iowa is eligible for this upcoming draft. Paige Beckers is eligible for either this draft or next year's draft. I think she's going to be a star in the NBA, as is Caitlin Clark. You've got some of these young players. Aaliyah Boston from South Carolina is going to come in, I think, day one, make an impact. We've seen that with Sabrina Ionescu, who I loved out of Oregon. So, listen, the popularity of the league is only going to increase. And, listen, Tom Brady recognized that and bought a stake into the Vegas Aces, who, for those of you that don't follow the WNBA, are trying their very best to be the WNBA's version of the Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant. Like, literally. You've got Kelsey Plum. You've got Asia Wilson. And they just added Candace Parker this offseason. Like, come on. They just won the championship and they added Candace Parker. Now, shout out to Candace Parker, by the way, VFL, Vol for Life. I think 2-time NCAA champion with Tennessee. But and listen, Candace isn't in her prime anymore in terms of on-court abilities, but, I mean, she just led a team to a WNBA championship just a couple of years ago with the Chicago Sky in her hometown. Not to mention the title she already had with the Los Angeles Sparks. So, yeah, she's going to be outstanding in Vegas, and I think it's safe to say they're the preseason pick to win the 2023 title. But all that to say, congrats to Tom Brady, and I think it's more than safe to say that was a great investment on his part. By the way, speaking of college basketball, Michigan State, Kansas State, they are about 10.5 minutes into that one. Kansas State's up 18-17, so pretty close early on between those two. Again, my Tennessee Vols tip off in about a little over 2 hours against Florida Atlantic. Tennessee is a 4.5-point favorite. That line has crawled all over the place. I guess I'll sort of discuss that later in the show, but I'm a little nervous for this one because Florida Atlantic is really good. I don't know if y'all have watched them, but they're legit. They beat Memphis, and then they beat the Cinderella team, Fairleigh Dickinson. Listen, Tennessee's obviously better than those two, but look out. They've only lost 3 games all year. All right, all of that to say, let's move on to our next topic. We're going to stick in the NBA and stick in the city of Los Angeles, where times are not very good for the Los Angeles Clippers because Paul George, in a game the other night against the Oklahoma City Thunder, Tuesday night against the Oklahoma City Thunder, went down with a knee injury. Again, this is according to I can't say this. I can't pronounce this person's name. I think they're an ESPN staff writer says. I would give them the credit if I could. I just cannot pronounce their name. Youngmasu, I think is how you pronounce. But they're reporting that Paul George will miss at least the next 2 weeks with a sprained right knee. The team announced Wednesday. George will be reevaluated in 2 to 3 weeks and is expected to miss the remaining 9 regular season games the Clippers have left. George's timeline for a potential return in the playoffs will be clearer once he is reevaluated, sources told ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. So this is the very reason that I didn't buy into the Clippers before the season. A lot of folks were talking about, hey, Clippers were formidable last year. Yes, they lost in the play-in tournament, but they got Paul George coming back. They've got a deep roster. Ty Lue's one of the better coaches in the NBA. And they get Kawhi Leonard back from injury this year. So plug Kawhi in. This is a title contender in the Western Conference. Never bought into him. And it was for this reason right here. Their best 2 players. And can Kawhi and Paul George be the best 2 players in a championship team? No question about it. I mean, Paul George led them to the Western Conference Finals when Kawhi got hurt in the second round, just 2 years ago. Paul George led a team, now this was 9 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, 10 years ago to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals with the Indiana Pacers. Yeah, but struggles to stay healthy. Kawhi struggles to stay healthy. You had Russell Westbrook, and now they haven't played Russ late in games, which has helped them. But because of the addition of Russ, it's caused a lot of chaos and confusion with the rotations. What do you do with Norman Powell? What do you do with Terrence Mann? Mann has played some, late in some of these games. It's been kind of confusing for the Clippers. And so now you lose Paul George. And by the way, Clippers are no sure thing to be in the postseason this year. As crazy as that sounds, I wish I could show the standings on the screen here, but I'm looking at my phone. Western Conference standings. The Clippers are a game and a half out of the play-in tournament. Just a game and a half. Only a half game in front of my Warriors. And the Clippers, by the way, play the Thunder tonight, which, by the way, Oklahoma City's playing incredible basketball right now, led by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But you've got the Timberwolves and Thunder, who are a game and a half back of the Clippers. You got the Mavs and Lakers that are 2 games behind the Clippers, and the Jazz and the Pelicans, who are 2.5 behind the Los Angeles Clippers. So for LA right now, it is survive, get into the playoffs without having to participate in the play-in tournament. But even if Paul George comes back, I worry about his health, potentially rushing back from a knee sprain. And I worry about Kawhi Leonard, who's dealt with injuries. Again, I'm not so sure doesn't have arthritic knees. That's not sourced or confirmed. But man, the guy has a ton of knee issues going back to his days in San Antonio years ago. And they've only worsened to this point. If I can't trust your 2 best players to be there, to be available, I'm sorry, I can't buy into you as a championship contender. That's not the only reason. Again, the Westbrook move to me hurt matters drastically for the Clippers. But because of all the roster movement and the injuries over the last few years, I still don't think there is a defined role for everybody. And that's what you see for every championship team. Every guy has a role. You got your scorer, you got your second scorer, you got your defensive stopper, you got your primary big, your rebounder, the guy who initiates the offense. Who plays those roles for the Clippers? Listen, Ty Lue already had a lot in his plate. It got that plate got filled that much more with PG going down on Tuesday. So, and I hate it for PG. PG's a good guy. I respect the fact that he's been incredibly vulnerable about his mental health. You guys know that's very, very important to me. So I have nothing but love for Paul George. And I hate that he's having to deal with another injury. But this is why I didn't buy into the Clippers going into the season. Even in a Western Conference that is as weak as it's ever been. I mean, the 1-seed Nuggets, we're like, okay, who could upset the 1-seed Nuggets? When's the last time we've ever had that discussion about a 1-seed? Seriously. We go into the playoffs and we're thinking, okay, what are the chances that this 8-seed beats this 1-seed? The playoffs don't start for another 3-4 weeks. And we're already saying, okay, could Golden State upset Denver? Could the Lakers? Could the Thunder? So Denver's falling off as of late. They're playing no defense. Jokic is having a little bit of a rough stretch. Memphis, and I'll talk about John in just a second. I'll save that for later. Sacramento has had an amazing year. Mike Brown, to me, is the runaway coach of the year. I don't care what anybody says. That guy's done an incredible job. And De'Aaron Fox should be an All-NBA guy this year. He's first in clutch time points. But they play no defense. They're 25th in the NBA defensively. People talk about, oh, Golden State doesn't play defense this year. They're 17th. Kings are 25th. You cannot be 25th in defense and win a championship. You just can't. Not only that, but they have 0 playoff experience and not a ton of size. Like Harrison Barnes is really their best wing defender. And he's good, I know from his days in Golden State, but he's not necessarily like a great two-way player. Phoenix. I don't know if y'all watching Phoenix. Phoenix is not playing good basketball as of late. Okay? They lost Devin Booker for time. He's come back. Kevin Durant's been out for a while. There's a chance he comes back before the regular season ends, which would be huge for Phoenix. but they're not deep, and they haven't had an opportunity to build any chemistry with KD. He's played 90 minutes as a Phoenix Sun. That's not enough to go on a playoff run. The Clippers, again, the Paul George injury. Golden State, who I still believe is going to win the West if healthy. I don't think we can win the championship without Andrew Wiggins, but Gary Payton's coming back. Like, things are starting to look up for Golden State, but still has not been the season that I and many imagined it would be. Minnesota, come on. OKC could get in, but I don't think they're good enough to win a series. Dallas, I don't think is good enough to win a series, especially with Luka and Kyrie. That's a funky fit in Dallas. The Lakers could, I think, if LeBron comes back healthy, but I don't know if they've been able to play, especially with the new pieces they acquired, who fit great, by the way. And I gave Rob Pelinka, after I've been bashing him for all this time, I gave him all the credit in the world for making the moves that he did. But I don't know if they built enough chemistry with one another. And plus, it's going to be tough to go on the road every single playoff series. I don't know if the Lakers can go on a run. The West is not just wide open, but kind of weak. I mean, I'd argue the best three teams in the NBA, all of them come out of the Eastern Conference. Milwaukee, to me, is the class of the East and the class of the NBA. And then we have a debate between Boston and Philly. I like Boston slightly more because while there's certain things I don't trust about Boston, there's more things I don't trust about Philadelphia. Joel Embiid, and I love Embiid. I think he's the MVP this year, but he always gets hurt in the postseason. Harden never delivers in the postseason, especially in the biggest of games, elimination games. And Doc Rivers, who I love as a human being, but he's the only coach in NBA history to blow 3-3-1 leads in the history of the NBA. I love Jason Tatum. Been a Jason Tatum fan since day one. And I still think Boston absolutely has a shot to get to the finals. But again, all of that said, best three teams in the NBA come out of the Eastern Conference. By the way, Cleveland's really good. And I hate saying that because I don't like Cleveland sports. I got no love for Cleveland sports whatsoever. But Donovan Mitchell's having an unbelievable year. They got great young pieces around him. They're going to be around for a while. I just don't think this is their year to compete given the teams that are above them. But if Cleveland was in the West, they can absolutely make a run. Patrick Brown's in the comments. What's up? He says Clippers title hopes are done. Kawhi can't carry the team. The West is very much wide open at this point. It's the concern I had about the Clippers from day one. And it sucks for Paul George. Knock on wood for him. Praying for a speedy recovery for him. Again, he very well could be back by the playoffs, but how healthy will he be by that point? And Kawhi, you're always going to question where he's at physically. So, yeah, I think I was never into the Clippers this year, but this kind of feels like a death blow. Okay, last segment of the show today. So you guys know I've been crystal clear about the fact that I don't care all that much for the Memphis Grizzlies for obvious reasons, especially as a Warriors fan, considering that, they're a team that wants so badly to be a dynasty, talk smack to the actual dynasty, and still has yet to back it up in the playoffs, but that's neither here nor there. But we know what's been going on with their star player, Ja Morant, over the last few weeks, starting with the gun in the Denver strip club, the suspension, the interview with Jalen Rose in between, the fact that, and this is an underreported story, the Grizzlies, and I've been on this for a year, are playing really well without Ja Morant. It's almost like the Kyrie Irving effect to a certain degree. Different players, same effect on the team. But Ja Morant comes back from suspension last night against the Houston Rockets. He scored 17 points, had a typical Ja Morant poster dunk over, I forgot who it was. I think it was Kenyon Martin Jr., if I'm not mistaken, who he yammed one over from the left wing. Again, it's a typical Ja Morant play. He's one of the better in-game dunkers we've seen. He's one of the most athletic point guards we've ever seen. He is as fun a player in the NBA as there is to watch. He's incredible. I'm not sure how much of an impact he has at winning, but he's incredible to watch. He still doesn't get it. People around him still don't get it. Starting with his dad, T. Morant. And that T. Morant is a guy who I've held off of criticism of. The first show back after the Ja incident, I said T's not the guy that I'm going to criticize because to T. Morant's credit, he raised a son, helped him get to the NBA, and Ja Morant is 23 years old. Like, there comes a point in time. I know everybody's different maturity levels, but there comes a point in time where you make your decisions. I mean, T. Morant to me is just a little bit more heightened version of LeVar Ball in terms of, sitting courtside. I didn't like the incident with where he was, trying to fight Shannon Sharpe, because nobody would have wanted to see that, especially T. Morant. But just getting involved with that wasn't good. But you had T. Morant during the game last night wearing a shirt talking about redemption, and this is going to be Ja's redemption. And it's like, just, if there was ever a time to lay low, this is it. Ja Morant is coming off an 8-game suspension. He missed night. He didn't play. He was eligible to play Monday, but wanted to get back in basketball shape, so he played Wednesday. Ja's coming off a controversy that was no joke. No joke. Not to mention the numerous allegations of things that had reportedly happened involving Ja going back to last summer. It's the Gone on IG Live that was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back for the NBA to say, okay, you're done for a while. You're going home. And it's as if he never left. It's as if his family and those around him, it's as if they never left. Now, Ja's no idiot. There's no question about that. I think it's a big reason he brought, and it's the reason I noticed Dillon Brooks did the same after the Grizzlies played the Warriors on this past Saturday night, bringing his young daughter out in the court with him. Now, do I have a problem with it? No. But I think Ja Morant is sort of using that as a way to say, hey, I'm bringing my daughter out. It's a good PR look. We see NBA players all the time, like bring their kids to press conferences. It's like, Ja, now is the time. And this is why I said this is what I was worried about, folks. When Adam Silver announced that it was an 8-game suspension, which, by the way, the majority of which he had served because he'd been suspended by the Grizzlies. So a big chunk of the 8-game suspension counted the games that he had already missed. It was really more like a 2 to 3 game suspension. And he comes back from, I guess, the facility in Florida, wherever he was at. I said, this feels a bit rushed. This feels a little bit rushed for Ja. To come back when he did, was some of it due to the fact that, hey, Memphis is the 2 seed in the West. Memphis may have a chance to potentially go on a playoff run. You want to have your best player back? Sure. But the off-the-court stuff is what matters. The off-the-court stuff is why Ja was suspended, and the off-the-court stuff, I'm not really sure that has really been addressed that much. Again, I'm pulling for Ja. I'm pulling for Ja. But I don't feel like anything's really changed. This felt like, at least, his opportunity, his dad's opportunity, those around him, their opportunity to kind of say, okay, it's over. We're moving on as if nothing happened, which is the last way to go about it. But it's all the more reason I do not buy into the Memphis Grizzlies as title contenders. Part of it's because I've been on this again for a year. They've been better consistently on both ends of the floor without Ja Morant in the regular season and in the playoffs than with him. Not to mention the fact that you've got nothing but distractions, all of which coming from the players. And it's in the instance of Ja, the people around him. I don't buy Memphis. I don't. I think they're a better team without him. They've shown that over the last couple of years. It's a deep team. Jaren Jackson Jr. was an all-star this year, deservedly so. Desmond Bane's really good. They're missing Steven Adams. They need him back. If they want any reinforcements. Tyus Jones has been great stepping in the role for Ja the last couple of seasons. He's probably the best backup point guard in the league, arguably. I didn't like the looks of anything I saw last night whatsoever. We'll see what happens as time goes on, but all the more reason to be concerned about Ja and to be concerned about Memphis. Again, I'm pulling for Ja. but I did not like what I saw last night at all. If there's any time to lay low, now is it, and they totally botched it. We'll see, though. We'll see. Again, about to get off the show here. Tennessee plays Florida Atlantic in 2 hours in the Sweet 16. Tennessee is a 4.5-point favorite, but the line was as high as, I think, 5.5, 6 early in the week, which makes me a little nervous. But I got my Vols. I said 66-61 Tennessee over Duke, and Tennessee, but I mean, Duke was favored in that game by, I think, 3 points it was. Obviously, Tennessee covered the, those who bet Tennessee +3 won some money, but Tennessee ended up winning by 11. I think it was 65. So almost got the Tennessee end of the scoring right. 65-54, I believe, was the final score of that one. But in this one night, Florida Atlantic, great 3-point shooting team, elite in the offensive end, underrated on the defensive end. Tennessee, we know, is the second best defensive team in all of college basketball. They give up in the 50s in terms of average points per game by the opposition. Olivier Nkamhoua had the game of his life with 27 points, I think, on 13 shots against Duke. Santiago Vescovi is one of the best sharpshooters in all college basketball, moves great without the ball. Not to mention there was some bulletin board material that the FAU coach threw out there. You know, Rick Barnes, Tennessee's head coach, who struggled at this point in the tournament, Sweet 16 on. I'm going to roll with my Vols. Got a score. Let's see. I'll say 63-57. Tennessee beats Florida Atlantic 63-57 and advances to the second Elite Eight in program history. Book it. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to catch Carving It Up Live tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. And be sure to like, share, comment, and take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button. Helps the channel grow exponentially. And be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network on YouTube. It's a network I'm a part of. You can find my show, Carving It Up. You can also find the other shows. Again, you saw in the comments, Patrick Brown of the Chaotic Sports Podcast, as well as the Forum Podcast, which is a Lakers show. So please be sure to check out both of his shows. Cowboys Cam Fan, they just did a live stream last night talking about the Cowboys offseason moves. I saw that Ezekiel Elliott potentially could go to the Philadelphia Eagles. I know that's not something that Cowboys fans want to hear whatsoever. We'll see what happens with that. But Cowboys Cam Fan, please go check their stuff out. Barry Grant Jr., the All Even Podcast, check his stuff out, as well as that of Parnell of the Commander's Demand Podcast. He's got a show coming out soon, new episode with Ryan Flowers of Clutch Sports Talk. Check his stuff out. And definitely check out Commander's Demand when it comes out this Saturday. And Alfred Parsar Jr. of the Metropolitan Report and the Rocket Fuel Jets podcast. But a new episode of Metropolitan just came out today. Great stuff. If you're a baseball fan and if you're a Mets fan, please go check that stuff out as well. So we're doing great stuff with the Grid. Very, very excited. And yeah, we're building some momentum. We are building some momentum. No question about it. All right. Have a great evening, everybody. I'll see y'all tomorrow night. Please continue to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. God bless you all. Peace out. Yeah, I hope I'm playing Rocky Top tomorrow. Please let me play playing Rocky Top tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.